Ashagyan can be called the Headless Orisha, but as you can see from this image, he rarely appears without it. That's because he got a new one. If you want to hear this story and a few others, come with me. Oshala, the king of Igbo, lived in constant war. He had many names. Some called him Elamukso, others Ajagunã, or even Akinjole, son of Ognirian. He liked to wage war and to eat. He really enjoyed a plentiful table. He ate snails, hominy, white doves, but what he really liked was mashed yam. He would never sit down if there was no yam on the table. His dinners were almost always late because it took a long time to mash the yam. Hiegebo, the king of Ejebo, was like that, always hungry, always scolding the cooks, always arriving late to go to war. Zala then consulted the Babalaos, made an offering to Exu, and then brought a new invention to humanity. The king of Ejebo invented the mortar and pestle, making it easier to prepare yam. The Lejebo could now feast and wage their wars. This king even became very famous for eating so much yam. So much so that people started calling him the Orisha, who eats pounded yam, which is the same as Ashagyan in the local language. Jagunã was born from Obatala, only from Obatala. He was born in an igbeam in a snail shell. As soon as he was born, Jagunã was already rebellious. He had no ori, he had no head, he wandered through life without a clear direction. One day, when he was almost crazy, he met Ori on the road. Ori made a white head for Jagunã. His head was actually made of yami, but it was made in a mortar, and because of that, his head would get very hot and give him torturous headaches. Even so, he kept walking down the road. Jagunã was already almost succumbing to his ailments when he met Iku, who was death itself. Iku started to dance for Jagunã and offered him another head. Ashagyan, being very afraid, at first refused the offer, but the heat was unbearable, so he ended up accepting it. Death offered him a black ori, Death offered him a cold ori, and he accepted. However, Ajagunã's luck did not change. His head was cold and aching, and now, on top of all that, he was still being chased by 1,000 shadows. Shadows of death, they were shadows of death that were in his cold head. Then Ogum appeared. He gave him a sword, and with the sword he drove away death and its shadows. Ogum did what he could to help his friend. With a knife, he tried to remove the cold head from on top of the hot head. In the middle of this operation, the two heads fused together, and it ended up turning blue. This new head was neither hot nor cold. A hot head doesn't work well. A cold head doesn't work well either. That's what was learned in this Ajagunã adventure. Finally, Ajagunã's life returned to normal. And it was with Ogum that he learned how to fight. And with that, he won many battles and many wars. Nowadays, his name along with Ogum's is often remembered by the generals. And that's how Oxaguiã came to be called Ajagunã, the title of the bravest among the warriors. The son of Oxalufan became a strong warrior. So he decided to take a kingdom for himself. And with him went a friend named Aulji. He conquered Ejebo and became its king, Ejebo. This king had a passion, which was eating yam, so much so that they called him Oxaguian. One day, Aulji, who was a great Babalawo, had to leave the kingdom. But before that, he gave Oxaguian some advice that he should make many offerings, because that would make the kingdom prosperous. And just as Oleje predicted, the city became very large and also very rich and well protected by Oxaguian's soldiers. The king lived very happily among his subjects, by whom he was called Kabiesi, which means His Majesty. When they were alone, his friends called him the Yam Eater, but in public that would be heresy. Years later, Oleja returned, and as soon as he entered the city, he began looking for Oxaguiã. "Where is the yam eater?" he asked. Some soldiers who were nearby didn't know him, heard what he said, and got furious at that insult. Is that any way to treat the king? They arrested and mistreated a stranger who was a friend of His Majesty. Oleja felt all that humiliation, and he decided to take revenge. Using his magical powers, he made it so that for 7 years, all known catastrophes, including drought, struck that kingdom. Ashagyan, of course, became completely desperate, so he went to consult the oracles, and through them, he saw the imprisonment of Oleja, a friend of the king who had been unjustly imprisoned. Ashagyan ran to the prison to free his friend. Ashagyan freed him, but his friend was still very upset and went to hide in the woods. Elegibo ran after his friend, begging for his forgiveness. Oleja said that he would forgive him, but with one condition, that these people would never forget this injustice. Every year, everyone should whip themselves to remember what happened. And so, the king should send several people to the forest every year so they could cut sticks. The subjects, who would be divided into 2 groups, would take the sticks and start hitting each other until the sticks broke. All of this so they would never forget that injustice, the one that was committed against Oxaguiã's friend. And so it was done, and the kingdom returned to normal. Oxaguiã was the greatest king of Ajibo. When he went to Orin, he became an Orisha, and his worship never forgot his friend Babalao. With Oxaguiã's rods, his followers always renew the memory, so that injustice will never happen again. Ludumare shared with his children the mission of ruling the world. And Ajagunã also had his own role, which was the domain of progress. But instead, he decided to sow discord and revolution. And it was through Ajagunã that the rivalry between nations began. He had a kingdom and really liked to wage war against his neighbors. But they would always go complain to Ludumare about Ajagunã's aggressiveness. So one day, the Supreme Being decided to call his son and scold him. But Ajagunã started to complain, saying that his father just sat around all day and had no idea how his discord was transformative for the earth. Ajagunã continued with the wars and turning people's lives into chaos until finally his father got angry, took away his kingdom, and banished him to a distant continent. But on this continent, there were people who lived in peace, and that irritated Ajagunã. And right there, he started making more wars, and so many wars that they spread throughout the world. This made Ludumare have to talk to his son again. Ajagunã explained that war made people progress, so he was fulfilling his mission. Olodumare finally accepted. The people kept on warring and progressing, and Ajagunã didn't even rest. Don't forget to follow me on my other social media, especially on that purple site, where every Friday I do a Battle of the Gods live stream. So if you want to join, follow me there, all right? Don't forget to rate the video by leaving a like or dislike, subscribe to the channel, and leave a topic in the comments for a future video. All right, thanks, bye.